What are some of the loudest games and moments in Sanford Stadium history? That's the question that I have for you this week. Now, a lot of games come to mind, but there's a select few that stand out immediately when talking about big moments, big games, and loudest moments in Sanford Stadium. The first one that comes to mind, 2004 LSU. Now, we're just talking about games in recent memory, probably the last 22 or so years, but 2004 LSU, Georgia won that game 45-16 against Nick Saban and the Tigers, who were coming off a national championship in the 2003 season. And that was a game where just every Georgia player made plays, whether it was David Pollock, Odell Thurman on defense, Thomas Davis, David Green threw 5 touchdowns at quarterback, Fred Gibson had a big game, Reggie Brown had a big game. Everyone was clicking, and it seemed like with every play, the crowd was just erupting. There was game day there. It was the biggest college football game of the week. And of course, when LSU comes to town, it is a big deal. And Georgia just came out and absolutely smoked them from the start. Big play after big play, touchdown, turnover, big hit, another touchdown. This is a game that Georgia really took control of early, and the crowd was into it. It was crazy loud. I remember being there with my family all those years ago. Early Doucette, former 5-star receiver that LSU had, took a knee on the 1. Everything went bad for LSU and everything went right for Georgia. And I just remember thinking, this is one of the loudest places I've ever been in. The stadium was absolutely rocking, and it was a big, big deal. And Georgia, I mean, it wasn't even close, right? I mean, Georgia came out and whooped them from the start. Again, 45-16 against the defending national champions. They were number 13 at the time. I believe Georgia was number 3. They were really, really good in 2004. You know, stumped themselves in the foot the next week against Tennessee. We're not going to talk about that, but this game has to be one of the loudest in Sanford Stadium history. Another one has to be the Blackout, right? 2007 against Auburn. Georgia comes out with the black jerseys. The crowd's going nuts. We had heard for weeks leading up to it, especially that, previous week, that Georgia might be wearing black jerseys. The whole stadium was decked out in black. Great experience, great atmosphere. Georgia won 45-20 that night. Matthew Stafford, no Sean Marino, Mohamed Massaquoi, a lot of guys played really, really well. And from people who were at the stadium there at that game, they'll tell you that might be the loudest that Sanford Stadium had been, especially up to that time. There have been some loud games since then, but that Blackout 2007 was a special, special game. And if you were there, you don't, forget that. Even people watching on TV, when you hear of Blackout, you don't think about the game they lost to Alabama the following year. You think about the 07 Auburn game where they really took control. No Sean had a great game. Matthew Stafford was throwing all over the Tigers there. 45-20, big game late in the season, had to have it. And, they were playing really well from then on. If there was a playoff, you could say Georgia could have run the table in 2007. But that Blackout game against Auburn, where they ran away within the second half, has to be one of the biggest, games, biggest moments in Sanford Stadium history. Another one against LSU 2013, right? Aaron Murray against Zach Mettenberger. Touchdown, 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 back and forth. Not a lot of defense, but a lot of explosive plays, lots of scoring. And it came down to that very end. And when Georgia forced the turnover on downs and won the game, the place just erupted. But that was a crazy game as well. I think College Game Day was there for that. I think Georgia was number 9, I believe. LSU was number 6. They had Odell Beckham. They had Jarvis Landry. They were loaded. And they came into Athens hoping to steal one away. And again, remember, Zach Mettenberger played for Georgia, right? Hometown kid, transferred to LSU. So it was his comeback to Athens, playing against the Dogs. Aaron Murray found Justin Scott Wesley, found Michael Bennett. It was just over and over. It was a great heavyweight battle. Boom, 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 offensively. Again, lots of big plays, lots of points, and the stadium was going crazy, especially at the end of that game when the game was won and it was sealed. Sanford Stadium was just going nuts. And if you were there at that game, that's another game that you just don't forget about. It was that crazy, that wild, and that loud. Of course, pretty recent, Notre Dame, right? 2019, one of the biggest games in Sanford Stadium history. Notre Dame playing up there early in the season. If you didn't have a ticket for that one, you missed out because it was just absolutely wild. It was a night game. The lights were going nuts. Everyone in the country was watching this game. And it was so loud because you could feel that Notre Dame wasn't used to that type of crowd noise. Yes, they play at Michigan and they play at USC and they play in some big stadiums, right? But they were shooting themselves in the foot over and over again because of the crowd noise. False start, false start. The game was 23-17, so not a lot of scoring. Really good defense by both teams. But playing in Sanford Stadium at night, that crowd, that atmosphere really gave Georgia the edge, and they were able to pull that win out just a couple years after going up to Notre Dame and winning there. So big deal. Definitely one of the loudest, games that I've ever heard. I was up in the press box for that one. Place was just going nuts, especially at the end when they sealed the victory. The Lawrence Cager touchdown, I believe, in the fourth quarter to really give Georgia a big advantage in that game, allowed them to seal the deal at the end. Place was just going bonkers. It was at night. And again, if you know of anyone who was at that game, or if you were at that game, really memorable and definitely one of the loudest that I've ever heard Sanford Stadium in my time. So those are definitely the 4 games that stand out to me the most. Have to have a few other games mentioned. Clemson 2014, Todd Gurley running through the Tigers left and right. Nick Chubb running through the Tigers left and right. Season opener in that one. Crazy atmosphere. Always big when Clemson comes to town. I heard that game was incredibly loud. Mississippi State 2017, the flea flicker to start the game. Place just exploded. Jake Fromm, really good game there. Mississippi State was coming off a big win over LSU where they just dominated the LSU Tigers. So they came to Athens feeling really good, and Georgia put a whooping on them, and the crowd noise made a big issue for Mississippi State in that game. They had no shot winning in Athens, and a lot of that was because of the crowd noise. Arkansas 2021, Sam Pittman bringing in the Razorbacks to Athens. I think they're still committing false starts, right? They were just shooting themselves in the foot over and over. Can't do that against Georgia's defense. And I mean, but with that crowd noise, it's really hard to really get on the same page and play well in an atmosphere in a stadium that loud and that crazy. So I definitely know that the Razorbacks had a tough time, especially early in the game with that crowd noise, just committing penalty after penalty. Not the Arkansas team that we saw the rest of the season. They were well coached. They played hard. They had a really nice season last year, but they had no shot beating Kirby Smart's Georgia Bulldogs in Athens, and a lot of that was, again, due to the crowd noise. So Auburn 2014, another one I don't want to miss. Of course, they lost to Auburn in heartbreaking fashion 2013. They were ready for the Tigers in 2014, a night game. Todd Gurley coming back from the suspension. It was crazy. It was loud. Georgia had to have that, and especially with what happened the year before, the fans were ready, the team was ready, and they won that game pretty solidly. We saw the greatness of Nick Chubb in that game as well. So just a few games that come to mind for me, whether I was covering the game or just there in person. So were you at any of these games? Does anyone else have an idea of what game might be louder, what moments were louder? Make sure you drop your comments off in the comment section. Again, we love reading those. So just a question I had, some of the going down memory lane, talking about some of the biggest, loudest moments in Sanford Stadium history. What do you think? Leave a comment, and thanks for watching this video. As always, stay tuned to the next one coming up right now, and I will see you over on Dog Post.